Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and I hope that in spite of all the things that seem to be, if not going wrong, at least going sideways, and the growing weariness and frustration that seems to be part of this moment, arguments over masks and frustrations with school boards, disappointment with the economy, confusion about the medical situation. There's a lot of those kinds of comments being made. I hope that in the midst of that, you are fighting for an attitude that is shaped by the promises of God and by the person of Jesus. We're studying Hebrews. It's a big study of Jesus. It's a celebration of the fact that Jesus is bigger than anyone, any problem, anything. He's better than everything. Angels, Moses, Abraham. Jesus is the ultimate. He is God. And so we've been looking at these 7 qualities of Jesus, a resume of sorts, and we marched through the first 4. Talked about the fact that Jesus is going to inherit everything from his Father, that Jesus is the creator of everything. Looked at this idea that he's the radiance of God's glory. He emanates from God. He's the brightness. Heaven has no shadows. It has no sun, but it has no shadows. It's filled with the radiance of Christ. And then last Friday we looked at this 4th quality, the idea that Jesus is the exact representation of God's being. I said there's some parallelism argument going on here that the first 3 and the last 3 line up, and 4 is the pinnacle of attributes, and that it points to this idea that Jesus is the perfect representation of the Father. And I talked a little bit about the mystery of Jesus, that there's not just this mystery that he is the second person of the Godhead, and that God exists as one God in 3 persons, but Jesus is fully God and fully man. He's not simply godlike. He's not the vice president of heaven. He's not God with a small g. He's not somehow almost equal to the Father, but not completely. No, he's every bit God. And he just has accepted this. He has accepted his role. In the Trinity, by the way, they always speak well of each other. The Father is always celebrating the Son. Jesus is always deferring to the Father. The Spirit is always pointing to Christ. But they're equal. They're all God. So Jesus is fully God. And now we get to the 5th attribute. It says that he sustains all things by the power of his word. The power of his word. The Greek word here is dynamis, which will eventually give us our word dynamite. I've shared in the past that when I was preaching in a preaching lab at Trinity, 35 years ago, one of the first sermons I preached, I mentioned this, that dynamite. I said dynamite within us, and I was corrected, rightly so, and accused of reverse etymological derivation. The student that pointed this out said, look, you can't say that dynamis means dynamite because it's 1800 years later before Alfred Nobel will create dynamite. So yes, dynamite is drawing on this idea of power, but you can't say that this power is the same as dynamite. Paul didn't, whoever was writing Hebrews doesn't know this at the time. That's right, but it is power. There is power. Jesus has power. And the point here is that he is sustaining. It's an active term. Christians are not deists. Deism, as opposed to theism, deism believes that God created everything but then has withdrawn. And that's not what we see in the Bible. It's not what we see with Christ. It's not what we see in the New Testament, that God is a God who's paying attention, who's active, who's involved, who's answering prayer, there are miracles happening. He's breaking into time and space. And so that's who Jesus is. He is sustaining things for us. Number 6 and 7 are going to pick up on the idea that he provides purification for sins and that he's seated at the right hand of God the Father. But we'll get to those. Let me just end today by going back to Colossians, which I read from last week. But here's another take on this idea that Jesus is actually holding things together right now, is involved in your life as you want him to be. Paul, writing to the Colossians chapter 1, verse 15, says, he is the image of the invisible God, right? The representation of God's being. He's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created by him and for him. See all the parallels here that are happening? And then he goes on, and he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Jesus is the cosmic glue that is holding everything together. He is bigger than you can possibly imagine. Be encouraged as this new week starts. Keep your focus on Jesus. Have a good day.